you do not want to use those. That is actually a mistake in the instructions, both in the manual online and in the Hey guys, welcome to another episode of my Axial Capra build series. In this part we're going to tackle the cage assembly, and for that you'll need bag G and this unnamed bag right here, which is part of the cage. For step G1 you'll need these following parts, as well as these and these, and also the cage. Once again, I'm using a Turnigy GT5 system, which is a FlySky GT5, and this is the receiver that I'm using with it. I'll put a link to this in the description below. Now I'm not going to screw these in all the way because I still need to connect my ESC and servos. So we'll just loosely screw these in right now. These are 10 millimeters. Now from the instructions it's not really clear if this should go from the bottom or the top, but we'll try to figure it out. Maybe putting these on up first. Let's go with the 18 millimeters. Alright, now let's see if we can tell if it's supposed to be from the top or the bottom. And it looks like it's supposed to be from the bottom. Alright. Once again, the 10 millimeter screws. And the first part of step G1 is complete. go ahead and move to the second part of G1. You want to grab the 12mm screws. $18mm screw. Another 18mm screw. Let's go ahead and move on to the other side. $12mm. 18mm. And another 18mm. And that completes step G1. For step G2, you'll need the following. You use the 12mm right here. You'll use the 25mm back here. $18mm up here. Another 18mm right here. $18mm down here. Another 18mm right here. Another 18mm up here in the front. Now we're gonna want another 12mm up here in the front top, and that's the 12. $18mm back here. I'm gonna put these clips up here in the front. Thinner side up facing top. And another 18mm right here. And give all the screws a once over, make sure they are secure enough. And that looks good, and we are complete with step G2. Well, technically, you gotta put this here, but that's step G2. For step G3, you'll need the following. So for this piece, the longer side is on top, the shorter side is on the bottom. $18mm screw. Another 18mm screw. So for this step, all the screws are basically going to be 18mm screws except for one 25mm and four 12mm and one 2.5 by 8mm. So I'll call the non 18mm screws out while I'm going through this step. Alright, this one is going to be the M 2.5 by 8. And we're going to use the 12mm here. See how that goes in right there? Move on to the other side to finish up the cage. $12mm right here. $18mm. $12mm. 18. This one is the 120mm. Well, sorry, 25mm. $12mm here. Back to 18. And let's just go over the screws once more. Make sure everything is secure. You can tell right away this plastic is much better than the old plastic that Axial used to use. The quality is much better, this being the plastics from the Lozi factory. Definitely a welcome change. I'm not as afraid of stripping plastic threads as I used to be with this new plastic. Alright, that completes step G3. For step G4, you'll need these following parts. You'll also need these following parts. You'll notice that I've already done the painting and applied the decals. You'll want to do that before you proceed with this step. Now for step G4, they're going to ask you to use these two screws to attach the helmets onto the bodies in the cockpit. You do not want to use those. That is actually a mistake in the instructions, both in the manual online and in the manual from the box. You actually want these two screws to attach the helmets. So do not use these. Use those. Here's where the decal should go. Now, I don't have a set of LEDs to put in here at the moment, but I am going to go ahead and put the brackets on, and in the future, if I do get LEDs, I can put them on later. Now, before we move on, you're supposed to mount the ESC right there. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet because I use the Hobbywing Axe system, and currently everything is soldered together with the motor. I'm also not sure whether or not I have space to move that ESC up to this front tray here. If I can fit it on this tray, I might try to use this tray instead of this mounting position right here in the back. But let's go ahead and get the interior mounted up. And that completes step G4. For step G5, you'll need the following. Now I have the battery tray pushed back as much as possible to allow for a bigger battery. It's adjustable, but battery compartment for the Capra is already pretty small, so you'll need to find a battery that fits this compartment. And I do happen to have one. I'll show it to you guys later. We'll get the light bar. And this is probably going to take some adjustments to wire it the way I want to as well. Doing both sides, it looks like. Let's not be lazy and unscrew this. Okay, we do want this on this side. Once again, I have not yet figured out how I want to wire this yet, but we'll just leave it like this for now. Alright, before you continue on with the rest of part G5, you'll probably need to first make sure you get all your wiring sorted, because there's just a limited amount of space to work with in the Capra. Just make sure you mount everything the way you want, and make sure you properly route your wires and organize them so that they don't get in the way of the dig shift servo. Make sure you get a servo extension wire if you get the Spectrum servo for the dig, or make your own. Use plenty of zip ties to zip tie the wires to the cage. For instance, the LED wire is zip tied to the cage here and here. And basically you want to plan out how you want to route these wires cleanly, and also get the servo wired up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start some of that process right now, and when we get back we'll go ahead and mount the cage to the rest of the chassis. You can see here, the goal was to get any wires out of the way of the dig servo. Just make sure that all the wires clear. Alright, it took a bit of work, but I was able to get the Hobby Wing X ESC put into the stock location and still clear the dig servo. The trick is to power on the truck and set the dig servo to the dig position so that the servo arm is in the rearmost position, and then reposition your ESC to make sure that the wires clear the servo arm. So glad I was able to move the ESC into the stock position and more towards the center of the truck. And that completes the final cage assembly part of this build. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified of the next part of the Axial Capra build series. Thanks for watching.